45 people completed the FreeCodeCamp certificate, but no one could make a web page when tested. And that brought me back to the original tutorials that I was watching that taught me, let's say, to use a language like C++, but also other languages. And when I was done with the tutorials, even though I followed to the tutorials, I wasn't just watching the video, I was actually doing the tutorial while listening to it. And that takes longer than the tutorial would take if you were to just watch the video. I wasn't able to do much on my own. I was always exploring, trying out different things, but I was never able to do a big program like a game or a big application. For example, this is a game. It's an entirely... I came up with this idea. That's unique. There's no tutorial on this. You can't have a tutorial for something like that. And so, since I used FreeCodeCamp actually in the beginning to learn C++, I think the tutorials by themselves are good, but they are not end-all be-all. They will not help you become a self-sufficient programmer. And I think the sentiment that is missing in many of those tutorials oftentimes is do things on your own. Just do things on your own and don't worry about if it's right or wrong. That's not taught enough. And so I posed you guys a question. And you guys have been hard at work voting. Right now we have 138 votes. And do you think online tutorials help you do things on your own? Because I think that's what you want to do. That's where you want to go to. And 60% of you say yes, while 41%, which is a lot still, say no. That is out of 138 votes. And so I really want to see what this guy is talking about when it comes to online tutorials.
All right, I have a scary story about FreeCodeCamp. And
is this
before
fun?
I tell you this story, I want you to understand that I think any resource that you learn from, no matter what, is a good thing.
Yeah.
And everybody's got a different learning style. They've got a different, approach to both teaching it as well as to learning it. Obviously, I have
Merry
a very
Christmas
quirky weird style. I'm wearing a hoodie, for God's sake. And so I have to be careful because what I'm going to say is going to sound extremely critical of FreeCodeCamp, and it is critical.
See, that's what I thought so too. I'm not critical of FreeCodeCamp at all, and I should probably make sure that I say that properly. I used FreeCodeCamp to learn C++, the basics, and that's good. If your goal, for example, in my case it would be C++, is to learn a language and the language takes some time to be described by someone, let's say that's a 4-hour tutorial on YouTube, you can't expect to go and make an entire program easily from that tutorial alone. And so these tutorials do a good job explaining the basics, and so that needs to be said. And in my opinion, this is more of I have a problem with tutorials online where it's always the same sentiments and never is it taught enough that you should just be free. Meaning you should just explore on your own and make mistakes that people made before. And the biggest sentiment that I hate the most, and I hear this all the time, don't reinvent the wheel. I think that's the worst thing you could say to someone that is trying to learn something. Every time I hear this, I get, you should reinvent the wheel so that you know what's wrong, because then you learn the best.
Of it. But I want to back it up. So this video is going to be linked both from the web part as well as from kind of the where should I learn, who should I learn from part. But I was reminded of the story today when we were doing web development, and I mentioned casually that after learning the basic structure of a website, that I used to give people a sort of a challenge, and I would say, okay, next week when you come back,
make a web page.
Let's time you. Let's see how long it takes you to make a web page from scratch.
Yeah.
And I used to always have jokers, come in and do HTML5 and then use the template from VS Code, and it would autocomplete, and they'd say, "I'm done, Mr. Rob." And I was like, no, you can't use that. You got to actually do it from scratch. And that meant that they had to remember how to do the elements in order, how to, what they were, what the head and.
How many of you can type an HTML header from scratch? How many of you knows what is inside of an HTML header? Like the first 2 or 3 lines. I can tell you that I don't, and I'm a web developer. I do, smiley face. No, the first thing you see, well, I should have said this better. An HTML page, what is the first thing you have in an HTML page? The meta character set, stuff like that, yeah. You can open up any browser page and then inspect that. Clock. Okay, bro. I used to make templates with all the headers, so I won't have to rewrite them every time. Yeah, so many don't know this, actually.
The body were different, and maybe, put a paragraph tag in there. And it's kind of a fun way, informally, to test them and have them see how much they learn. And it is actually one of those things where kind of memorizing it makes sense, right? Because you don't always have access to AI or to to a template system that's going to fill it out for you. It is true that memorizing things like how do I start doing anything, any kind of boilerplate is completely
takes a long time.
Being replaced.
It's not, you don't really need it, but it's good to know. Yes.
By AI helping us create the boilerplate for everything. And that's awesome. But the point of that particular exercise was just to help them get to know it. But that's not even really the main point of this video. The main point of this video is how little these people learn from FreeCodeCamp. So I am very sad to say that I'm going to share with you the statistics. Is going to look very bad on me, and there's going to be one person in the comments
Yikes.
that's going to say, well, that's just because you're a sucky teacher or a bad mentor. Fine. If you want to say that, great. I'm still going to tell you the story.
It's actually really difficult to make good tutorials online. I've now tried for the third time, I think, to make a tutorial about coding in C++. I started with coding an entire engine, a Pong clone in Vulkan, and that tutorial series lives to this day, and I get positive feedback from it. It's great, but I realized from making that tutorial that it's actually a lot of work, number one, and number two, you have to show people code long enough and explain it well enough so that they can actually follow the tutorial. And most people quit in the first 10% of the tutorial. If you have a playlist of 20 videos, the first 2 videos get all the views and people are interested, and then it takes so long. And then making the Celeste clone tutorial, it's very difficult to not sidetrack too much and stay on topic. But then when you're staying on topic, you're omitting a lot of information. And so now you have a tutorial that only tells you half the truth or only explains half the things. Hey, what's up, Cakez? Hello there, my man. Good morning, bro.
So I took 35 or 40 people that I was mentoring, and one year I said, look, I am tired of reinventing the wheel on everything. Mm-hmm. I want to get behind the efforts of others that are promoting education out there. And so I sent all 45 people from my...
I watched all the Vulkan videos. I'm no quitter. But after I finished it, I went to OpenGL. So my tutorial about Vulkan brought you to OpenGL. That's great. Good to know that. Thank you.
That particular mentored semester through FreeCodeCamp's web development project.
Okay.
And
sorry, so he told his students to go to FreeCodeCamp? Sorry, let's rewind a little bit.
And so I sent all 45 people from that particular mentored semester through FreeCodeCamp's web development project.
I see.
And every week we would go through it, and I would help them do their things. And I had a couple people figure out how to hack the things so they could get credit, even though they didn't do it, which was totally cool.
This brings me back to school, man. You're trying to cheat everywhere so you get the maximum amount of points. True.
But I was like, you're not learning it just because you learned how to hack it. And
well, he did learn something.
Really funny. That's what happens when you teach everybody to think like a hacker. I mean, they're like, how can I pass this without having... Anyway.
Smart.
So they ended up doing they did go through the thing, but the problem, and honest to God, I don't know my best guess about the problem with the web development certificate, and they all got the certificate. They all 45 or so of them got the certificate, so they were all officially web developers according to FreeCodeCamp.
Wait. So you are a web developer if you make a course online. Is that how that works? And so who defines that certificate? Don't you have to make a web? So if I was to, the video is about how no one could make a web page. Shouldn't you be able to make a web page as a web developer? And if you have a course online that teaches you to become a web developer, shouldn't the final exam be that you're making a web page? Maybe they all cheated the final exam. And they just copied a web page. And then someone saw that, it was like, yep, looks good.
And so
no, you just have to change the color of a button. I don't believe you have to just change the color of a button, bro.
I decided to test them. I gave them the challenge that I just mentioned to you. I gave them the challenge. I said, they came in one day after they had their certificates and they printed it out and they were showing it to their parents, and their parents thought they were awesome. Parents loved flashy pieces of paper and T-shirts and crap like that. Yeah. They don't. When the parent says, "What is my kid going to get?" They said they're going to get knowledge and learning and potentially a job. They're like, "Oh, but do they get a certificate or do they get something? They get a trophy?"
These are boomer parents. They don't know the times. Now, when your kid has something on the internet, like let's say the kid is really interested in making games and they have like 5 games on the internet, that is the best certificate that anyone could give that kid. So it's like, it's their own certificate. They made their own.
Something that's I can show the other parents how awesome my kid is. It was a challenge. And FreeCodeCamp definitely did that. FreeCodeCamp gave them these big fancy certificates saying they were web developers and it was like signed and they printed it out and they hung it in their room. And then I tested them on it. Do you know where this story is going, right?
Yeah. We read the title.
No, that's not true. Two people. 2 of them, out of all of the 45 or so of these kids, could finish making a web page at all.
Damn. In JavaScript?
Only 2 of them. They went through the entire thing. They had a certificate, and I sat them down and I said, "Fine, make me a web page." And they couldn't do it. They had no idea. And
then they all failed his class. And he's like, "Okay, you're gonna have to repeat it. I'm not giving you anything."
Say, okay,
that would be funny.
Well,
he did nothing, sent them somewhere else, and he's like, "Oh no, you didn't manage to do it properly." Okay,
do this.
Repeat
Let's
now,
at
bro.
least get you a server, because FreeCodeCamp doesn't teach you how to set up a live server so you can preview your site at all. It makes you completely dependent on their service.
Well, how many web pages use you can use IIS from Windows. For those of you have you guys ever seen this? So Windows has this, allows you to set up web pages and then you can show them in local hosts. So you could easily make a web page on Windows and debug that using HTML, using JavaScript. You don't have to use a server. But yeah, that's beside the point.
In order to even view anything, it doesn't talk about how to make
Windows
a web server.
Yeah.
It doesn't talk about where you could host on GitHub for free. It doesn't talk about how to preview your stuff in real-time live. None of that was covered. Did it cover the meta tag? Yeah, it did.
The meta tag. Good.
But not a single one of these people could create a website. None of them. And I kept saying, "Okay, I'm going to get you a little bit of help here. Okay, so here you got a server now. All right, ready, go." And I said, "Look, okay, you got your server. Now all I want you to do is just make a basic web document with like a header of the title and 1 paragraph." And none of them could do it except for 2. And the 2 that were able to do it were those who I had already taken through this challenge, and I had taught them these things myself one at a time and a thing. And this isn't about me. This is about the dependability of...
It has a poor feature set, yeah, I know, but then you don't need anything external. You can just set it up. You don't have to install anything external from Windows. But I get that people don't like using IIS a lot. But you can still make a basic web page and it acts as a server on Windows.
For education websites. The
Stormrun
takeaway
Gaming,
from
good
this
morning.
is that, in my experience, for education tools suck. They totally suck. And they don't teach you actual skills. They teach you the theory, or they get you to do a thing, but they didn't even know.
So basically they disconnect what you have to do. So for example, changing a button in an existing page doesn't do anything if you don't know how that existing page came to be. It makes sense to me.
Oh, what index.html? I'm not even kidding, my friends. I am not making this up.
Okay.
None of these people knew what to name the file. They didn't even know.
There's a comment here. FreeCodeCamp is all hand-holding and you aren't taught how to independently think and apply creative problem solving. See, that's what I mean. And that's a comment in the video. It's like on the bottom here. That's, I think, is not taught enough online. You have a tutorial, they tell you to follow the basics, they tell you to follow the, how do you call that? How do you call this? What is it called? Best practices. They tell you, follow these best practices, don't do this, do that. And you're taught to not think at all, because they have already done the thinking for you. They already know, and now you should know, the best things to do. And that's, for me, when I started, I hated that. I hated that so much. I went to, what is it called? I went to, fuck man! Brain! I went to Stack Overflow to ask a question. And I got told the most basic answers. And none of these people actually engaged with my question. It was so annoying. It was frustrating.
What the file was, or where it would
Hello
go,
there, on
or
YouTube.
why is it ended
Good morning,
with
bro.
.html. They may have known one or two or three or the tags. This was in 2019. That was in 2019. Now, is it true that FreeCodeCamp has probably improved their materials a lot since then? Yes, it is.
Yeah, it could be.
Another one was Code Academy. Code Academy, same exact problem. I sent people through there.
Code Academy is being advertised a lot on streams and YouTube videos.
Couldn't do it either.
I was actually thinking of doing a Code Academy thing to test it.
And that was when I realized, and this really is the takeaway. The takeaway is that for education, simulations constantly suffer from missing all of the material, right? And my personal theory on the FreeCodeCamp approach was, number one, it wasn't based on any pedagogy that has ever worked in an IT sector, period. It was just based on, okay, we're going to do this thing, and then it would immediately send them another video and another thing, and they would do what was necessary to pass that level. And it didn't add on to the previous knowledge. It just kept giving them new knowledge without reinforcing their old knowledge. You know what would have...
Shouldn't the best tutorial be about web development? If I were to learn web development again, I think the best tutorial would be to start with a blank HTML page and then just writing that HTML page and slowly building it up to a website where maybe you have chat functions, different images shown, different tabs, different pages, all of that. We're starting from a simple HTML file, and when you end that tutorial, you still have you have the same project. Essentially, it's exactly the same project, but now you have a web page, you have run it on a server, and you can view it. You can interact with it. I think that would be the best tutorial. If I were to make a tutorial for web development, making a page, that's what I would do. Web development is more than an HTML page, though. Yeah, you're right in Aeon Codes, that's true. However, it all starts with an HTML page. Every single web page you interact with is an HTML page. And if you want to write a script in that page, that is a script tag. You can also load in JavaScript files, but these are essentially just script tags. So it all starts there.
Reinforce their...
How did you learn it then, if not from scratch? How I learned web development was to interface with already existing pages. I didn't learn it that way. I learned React first, stuff like that. And then I learned to just fix existing web pages. I have never actually written an entire web page from scratch. I did. That's wrong. I did do that. But that was part of me having to program something for my company back then when I was still working for it. And I managed to do it. And it was really nice building something from scratch. And I got really far. But like teaching, I learned just by interfacing with existing pages and then fixing stuff there. And then just taking a look at how that's done. And then also how I learned was sometimes I had to set up servers, and setting up a new server meant, okay, I would have to set up a web page too. And so then out of necessity of having to do that, I learned these skills. And now 2 years later, I've already forgotten most of them. Did you set up Webpack? No, I don't. It's so long ago. Maybe I did.
The whole time? By making an actual thing. By making an actual page.
It's strange because the video tutorials for FreeCodeCamp are exactly what you're saying. So that's a great comment, Mr. Davi, because here is, I read a comment that is exactly saying this. The curriculum they have on YouTube is better than on the main site, IMO. So it looks like the main site that was used for this experiment is worse off than the YouTube videos that you can watch for free. Which is, I always advocate for free YouTube tutorials. And the reason for that is because YouTube offers you something that barely any other platform can offer you, which is a like and dislike ratio. Let's see, YouTube, C++ tutorial. So for example, this is the FreeCodeCamp tutorial on C++ on YouTube, and you can not only see how many views it has gotten over the 6 years, that's a huge indicator for how do you say that? How it's not successful, but how do you say that, man? Why do I forget all of these names today? Fuck English, bro. Let me think. How well known a tutorial is and how the feedback was. Together with the likes to dislike ratios on this video, you can determine how successful this tutorial is in teaching you C++. And usually, this is all you need. This is a good way to learn C++. Trust me, not video firm. Studyplan.dev. Free unlimited access. I don't think it's free, bro. I'm pretty sure I have to log in. But let's see, starting from the fundamentals. I can't click on this. Get started. I'm pretty sure it's going to tell me to log in, right? Selecting the editor. Oh, wow. Damn. That's crazy. Okay, so where's the catch? Bro, where is the catch? It's free AI. Where's the catch? No one does this for free, bro. Listen, okay, I have seen this. Biggest scam in YouTube history. This application, browser extension, was free too. And then it stole all your money, turned all of the links into referral links, and made millions and billions of dollars. I don't trust this stuff, you know. It looks too good to be true, bro. It looks too good. It's a PayPal extension? It is. Yeah, I know. They get all of the referral links from you. They steal from you. Doesn't require login, bro. Halfway into it. That's too good to be true, bro. Another way of achieving line breaks, which we'll see in other learning resources, for example, involves streaming endline or std endline to the output. The following code shows an example of both. Hello world. Chaining operations. Hello world. Outputting numbers. Interesting. Summary. Preview. So they show you how to set up them. I would have to take a look into this. It's AI slop testing. The creator said on Reddit. If you want to go down that rabbit hole. I see. So this is all done with AI, which means it can contain misinformation. Is that true? How far does a tutorial go? Interesting. This is an AI page. Wow. Okay. He said 80% is created by AI. He's just proofreading. Yeah, crazy. That's interesting. Maybe it's actually the best tutorial out there then.
All the time, potentially from scratch. Maybe having them make 3 or 4 different pages. You make this page that does this. Now make another page that does this plus this other thing. Now make another page that does that plus something else. And then you aggregate their knowledge by layering on so that they get constant repetition or redundancy in the stuff they've already covered, so that by the time that they're producing this really amazing web page, the thing that they remember the least is the thing they most recently did. But at that point but that is not how the FreeCodeCamp stuff was set up. It was set up to go do this and then do this and then do this. And all of the online for education things like the gamified education, and there's a bunch of, I'm not even going to say
gamified education.
There's a bunch of gamified education right now.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, where you play through the education and it's teaching you
regarding these kinds of things. And the thing I worry about the most is that someone's going to finish enough to do.
Prices your data. Temporal mail is our resource rescue, but you don't have to log into the web page to see it. Boot.dev.
Do the thing. Another good example was Vim Adventures. Vim Adventures teaches you how to win the game. Vim Adventures. It doesn't teach you Vim. And kids that had gone through Vim Adventures did not know how to edit a file using Vim in the terminal. They had no idea, because they never associated the act of editing a file with the keystrokes that were happening from Vim Adventures. And the hypothesis behind a thing like Vim Adventures is, oh, these kids are going to master all these really great, command line things. The problem is that's not how your brain works. Your brain works by associating the task at hand with what you are seeing. That means you look.
I wonder if Vim Adventures came from Mr. Prime. Probably not, but would be funny.
Looking at a terminal and you have a text file that needs to be edited. What are the commands? And then your fingers become associated with the movements and stuff to do that. And that is exactly the same.
I use like 5 keystrokes of Vim and that's it to write my game. I hate Vim tutor, teaches you nothing. I didn't go through Vim tutor, which is why I only use JK, Shift 4, 5 to go to the beginning at the end, and then Control and Delete to delete whole words. And then sometimes I use yank and delete and paste and selecting entire paragraphs and shifting them to the left and to the right. That's all I do.
Thing for web development. If they had learned how to make a very simple web page, and if I had walked them through using VS Code or whatever to make an actual web page the same way an actual professional developer would do it, then they would be building on actual skills using real tools. And I cannot overstate how valuable that is, because even if you learn the skill completely and you're doing it in the cloud on some educational website and you're not actually logging into a system where every single thing is the same, then the pneumatic pneumatic pathways in your brain, the neural pathways and the pneumatic mnemonic methods and stuff like that, they're not going to work, because your brain is used to associating all of this stuff, the entire experience. It's not just about knowing how to do X and Y command. It's about having all the pieces be in sync so that when you are put in a similar situation for real, it's the same, because you've never done anything but.
Cakez, you need training. Also, Cakez, learn C++ Gamedev in an hour. The video about Gamedev in an hour is teaching you to do things on your own. I'm just showing them how a game could be done. The entire setup from start to finish coincides, or try to pack that into an hour and a half of video format. And then you can keep rewatching the tutorial to see the setup, to see the finish line, everything. And the reason for that is because then people can see the entire process from start to finish and keep, hopefully make their own stuff.
The real thing. And
I how do you say that? Not promote. That's not the word I'm looking for. Emphasize, yeah. And I emphasize all the time that you need to explore and do things on your own.
I see this all the time, and so my concern very, very simply is that, places like FreeCodeCamp and other gamified education things, there are a couple of areas where I've seen it more productive than others. For example, Code Combat, that because they were doing
combat.
coding and they had to, you know, the actual syntax of the code that they were writing, you know, they got better at writing that syntax, but they weren't solving real world problems. They were solving, you know, a problem to help them beat the monster. So maybe they learned how to do recursion in a loop or something, but it wasn't as effective, in my opinion,
Competitive
had
programming.
they been, you know, solving their own problems. I want to make a story game. I want to make a something that accomplishes a particular goal of mine.
Yeah.
And that just, it's just much more visceral. It's much more real. It just
By the way, that is why tutorial hell exists. These tutorials teach you to rely on tutorials for information and guidance. And then you want to do something on your own. You have no idea how to do that. And so your first instinct is to go to Google the solution. And it should be taught the other way around. You should be taught to do stuff on your own and come up with your own solutions. And your own solutions should take precedence over a predefined solution in a tutorial. But it's difficult to do that because the tutorial has to teach you something from start to finish. And so if you're not following that and doing your own, then you have something else than the tutorial. And now it's more difficult to help you when you have a problem.
tends to stick better. So that's the end of the video, really. It's not to throw FreeCodeCamp under the bus. I understand that they have changed a lot, but the takeaway was I sent 45 people through FreeCodeCamp, and only 2 of them could build a website afterwards, a web page, and those 2 had already learned how to do it before that. That's the truth.
Sag.
Hey guys, PJ here from Giants Love.
I think that's sad, but this is why I always advocate for just do your tutorials on YouTube. Try not to pay for tutorials if you don't have to. The stuff that you should pay for is not a tutorial, but personal guidance. So for example, you want to make something yourself, or you learn how to program in C++ or any other language, and you want to make a game. Now you start making a game and you're getting to a point where you can't move forward because you're inexperienced, but you want to do something, and maybe you have an error, maybe you have something that doesn't work or behaves differently than what you think, and you need personal guidance. You have a, let's say, for example, out of the blue, let's say you want to do lighting in 2D. And you have absolutely no idea how to do that. You watched online resources, doesn't really work the way you want it to work. Now, personal guidance is something that you should pay for, and that's what online teaching should be, in my opinion. And all the other stuff, I would just get for free on YouTube. I watched Cakez 1 hour C++ game dev video. Now I'm 100x dev. True, you are 100%.